Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today I have something special for you. This is DCS, Digital Combat Simulator. Now I've been playing DCS for quite some time now, and it's one of my favorite games, and if you could call it a game, but it is more like a hardcore simulator. Now, at the moment we're sitting in the cockpit of the P-51 Mustang. Yes, the legend P-51 Mustang of World War II. Now, this is going to be a new series on my channel. It's going to be a series of tutorials for all the aircraft that I own in DCS. Now, each tutorial is going to have 4 sections: cold startup, taxi and takeoff, landing and shutdown, and weapons deployment. So today, for the P-51 Mustang, we'll be doing a cold startup tutorial. Now, if you're new to DCS, DCS is a military simulator, a very high fidelity, realistic military simulator. They have aircraft from World War II all the way up to the present date. Now, in the cockpit of these high fidelity modules, you will see a lot of dials and switches. All of these dials and switches are interactable. All of them function. You can click them with your mouse button and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and start this tutorial. Now the first thing that you want to do in the Mustang is put your flaps handle all the way up. So we don't want any flaps. Then we want to move the carburetor air control all the way forward to rammed air. Then we want to make sure that this lever is all the way forward in normal air and not hot air. If you move it back, it's in hot air. Obviously, you would want hot air if you're starting up the aircraft in a cold weather condition. Next, we want to look at the trim tabs. So here's a rudder trim tab, aileron trim tab, as well as elevator trim tab. We want a 6 degrees right rudder trim setting. So that's about 6 degrees. We want to go neutral on the aileron, so we won't touch that. And on the elevator, we want to go 2 degrees nose heavy if we have full internal fuel, and 4 degrees nose heavy if we have external weapons loaded, as well as external drop tanks loaded. So 2 degrees just for internal fuel, full internal fuel, 4 degrees for an aircraft that has external stores on board. So if I zoom in for you, we have to move this trim tab forward all the way to 2 degrees, because currently we only have full fuel on the internal tanks only. We don't have any external stores. So that should be about 2 degrees right there. Next, what we want to do is we want to check our fuel tanks. So the left-hand side fuel tank gauge is over here on the bottom. You can see that it's full. Our right-hand side fuel tank gauge is on this side. We can see that's full as well. And then we'll check the fuselage tank gauge as well, which is behind to the left side of the pilot seat, back there. And we can see that's full as well. So that's all good. Then what we want to do is we want to set the parking brake. Now the parking brake is over here. What you want to do is you want to press and hold both your rudder pedal brakes. So right now I'm holding the brakes down. I will pull and hold this parking brake lever. I will release the brakes and I let go. Now this sets the parking brake. Next, we want to move the prop pitch, which is this lever here, this black lever labeled with P, letter P. You want to move that. You want to move that all the way forward, and you want to move the throttle about an inch forward to open position, around there. Then you want to next check the supercharger switch, which is this red switch over here. You want to make sure that it's in automatic. Now, if I zoom in for you, this switch is in automatic by default, so you will just leave it. Next, we want to check the fuel shutoff valve. So this red lever down here, we want to move it from off to on. Then we want to check the fuel tank selector valve, which is the switch over here. We want to make sure it's in the left-hand side main tank, which is where it will be set by default as well. And obviously you can change to the other tanks, the fuselage tank, the right-hand side fuel tank, and obviously your right and left drop tanks. So that's that. Then we want to make sure that the fuel booster is on. So that's the fuel booster switch. We'll click it to go on. Then we want to set both magnetos to on. You got the option of off, right, left, or both. We want our ignition system of magnetos to both. Then we will turn on the battery. So this is the switch right here. Battery. We'll turn this on, and you'll begin hearing the aircraft do some things. You can hear it coming to life. So we've got the battery on. Then next we'll go ahead and turn on the generator, which is this switch right here. Now, after doing this, we're going to turn on our radio, which is right here. The radio has 4 channels, A, B, C, and D. These channels have to be pre-programmed whilst you're in the mission planner. So I have put in the ATC, or the traffic tower, air traffic control tower for Kavioleti Airport, into channel A. So I'll go ahead and turn that on. Now let's ask permission for startup. So we go ATC, Kavioleti, request start.
Kavioleti, in field 1-1, request startup. Enfield 1-1, Kavioleti, cleared for startup, wind 070, at 6 meters per second.
Roger that, thank you. So now we have the all clear to start up the aircraft. Now there's a couple of more things that we need to check before we actually do the start. We need to come down here and check our lights. You can press and hold these light buttons. We'll show you that the lights do actually work. Supercharger light. Obviously our landing gear lights are working. Our supercharger light is working. Then we need to come down here and have a look at the oxygen blinker. So this blinker is showing us that the aircraft is providing us with oxygen. Over here, if I zoom in for you, this is the oxygen cylinder pressure. We must have at least close to 400 psi of oxygen pressure, which we do, just slightly below 400 at the moment. Now, before we actually do the actual startup, I want to show you some of these gauges and tell you what they do. So over here, we have the airspeed indicator. We have our altimeter showing our altitude, which you can use this switch here to set it to your current airfield altitude. Over here we have the turn and slip indicator. Over here, the vertical velocity indicator. Up the top here, manifold pressure. Over here, engine RPM, coolant temperature, carburetor temperature, accelerometer, and down here, which is one of the most important ones, oil temperature on top, oil pressure to the bottom left, and fuel pressure to the bottom right. So now we can begin priming and starting the engine. Now for the priming of the engine, all you need to do on a normal day such as this, you need to prime the engine for 1 second only. So this button right here, you hold it down for 1 second, and that's it. And this is the starter switch. So you remove the red cover, and then we'll just hold the engine in starter. The engine will begin coughing, and it will start. As soon as we hear the engine start, we're going to move this red switch here labeled M to run. It has 3 positions. Currently it's in the idle / cutoff position. Then it's got the run position, and it has a full rich position as well. As soon as the engine starts, we want to move this to the run position. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Let's go ahead and close the canopy. It's quite loud with the canopy all the way open. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to do. So let's turn on our lights, our fluorescent lights for our gauges. There we go. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to look out for. First and foremost, you need to have the throttle in about 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,300 RPM. So you want to keep it around there until the oil temperature over here. Basically, we need to warm up the engine. So we'll keep the engine at around 1,000 to 1,500 RPM until the oil temperature reaches 40 degrees. Now, one thing that's quite important is that if the engine oil pressure does not reach 50 psi within 30 seconds, you have to turn off the engine. And if you want to start the engine but it fails to start, you can prime it again for 1 second and do it again. But you should not do this more than 3 times if the engine fails to start. Now, as the engine is now starting and warming up, you can go ahead and make a final check of everything, all your instrument gauges. So coolant temperature, carburetor temperature, oil temperature, it's approaching 40 degrees now, oil pressure, and fuel pressure. You want to have everything within those 2 red marks. You want everything to be in the green zone. So now our engine is almost warmed up. We can go ahead and bring the throttle back. There we go. Now a couple of more things. Here we have gun heating and pitot heating. Pitot heating is obviously for the pitot tube for the aircraft. You don't want to have this on unless it's very, very cold. You want to have this on only whilst you're in the air. If you have it while you're sitting on the ground like this, it can overheat. And you don't want to have the gun heating on unless you're intending to use the weapons after takeoff. And over here we have the switches for the wing and tail lights. It has an option of dim or bright. So as you can see, we have the lights on the wings and on the tail. Well, that's it, guys. The P-51 Mustang is on. It's running. This is basically the startup procedure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. This is the end of our cold startup tutorial. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, please subscribe, because I'll be doing many more videos like this. Until then, see you later.